In my culture, death is not the end. It's more of a stepping off point. You reach out with both hands and bust and segment. They lead you into the green veldt where you can run forever.
Welcome back to Thinking Critical. This is Wes, and as you all know, or maybe you know, maybe you don't, I am likely in the hospital right now tending to my wife and hopefully my newborn baby. This is the day that it's all planned to happen. So I have a host of videos for you guys that I've been working on tirelessly for like 3 weeks. I actually was able to get almost another week's worth of content prepared and all uploaded. So there won't be any like new breaking news or anything like that or new reviews, at least for a few days. But there were two recordings that I had done. Was it a year and a half ago? It might have been upwards of 2 years ago. One about Black Panther with my good friend Skip and Tosh. One about Chris Claremont with my good friend Doc. Why they were never fully produced and uploaded to the channel, I don't exactly remember. But once I realized they were still there, it was so long. They just kind of were sitting there. And I've been waiting to produce them. Now, this one is a little bit different, obviously, in the time that we recorded that, Skip and I, about Black Panther, just the comic book, and we talk about the movie. We did lose Chadwick Boseman, who portrayed the character in the MCU. Tragic loss, far too young, and losing somebody at that kind of age is heartbreaking, and the impact that he had on the MCU and allowing people to discover a great character like Black Panther is just, it's immeasurable. And my heart goes out to his family, and it's just, it's tragic. So I did have to edit this video a bit, just some of the audio, because at the end of it, we did go into talking about some of the rumors that were out there about the sequel to Black Panther. I took that part out. None of that was relevant anymore. But we do talk about Chadwick Boseman and his portrayal of Black Panther. I did want to finally get the video out. So if it sounds like it's a little bit old, and maybe, obviously, Chadwick Boseman was still alive when this was recorded. So that is the moment in time where this recording came from, this piece of material that I'm uploading to the channel. After this, in a few hours, there will be that Chris Claremont discussion with Doc. There's really no editing on that one. Nothing really has happened to affect any of the material that we talked about in there. So enjoy these two, and the rest of it has all been recorded and edited and produced in the last 2-3 weeks as I've been getting ready to welcome my third child into this world. His name is going to be Eric Joseph. Very excited. Look out in the community tabs. If you're following me on Twitter, I'll definitely post some pictures of me with the baby, and hopefully everything goes well. Please pray for us in the baby, and everything goes well. Without further ado, let's bring Skip and Tosh onto the channel and talk about Black Panther, the legacy of the comic book character, and the legacy of Chadwick Boseman in the MCU. I really like doing these, deep dives into character studies and talking to the people that are really attached to him. And, Black Panther is a character that's really very much in the public conscious right now. He had a huge movie. He made a real big impact in the Civil War movie, of course, when he was introduced to the MCU. The Black Panther movie was over $1 billion, but that character has a rich history in comics. And with me today to talk about the Black Panther character and everything that makes him great is my good friend, Skip and Tosh. How you doing, buddy?
Good, man. I haven't talked about Black Panther in quite a while, but the name is coming back up since the Black Panther #2 got greenlit, and they are currently working on production. So I'm excited to come and talk a little bit about the character with you.
Black Panther is an interesting character. He was introduced in the Fantastic Four, as just as another hero by Jack Kirby and Stan Lee, two of the greatest of all time, if not the two greatest, creators of all time in comics. And I don't know if they really had that character in mind as someone that would be like a cultural touchstone or an icon, in American culture and American comics. But that's certainly what he's become over time. I haven't read a ton of Black Panther comics. I know you're much more familiar with the character. What is it about the character of T'Challa that makes him great, that makes him special, that separates him from the other heroes?
A lot about his character and his personality. Originally, when they did introduce him with the Fantastic Four, he was a bit of a foil. He was, an issue for them. He came in and in a way kind of attacked him, and they had to find out through time that his motives were altruistic, and he actually looked at them as a threat. And then once they got on the same page, then they ended up becoming allies. And I think, one, that's a great way to introduce a character. And from there, they saw an opportunity that there wasn't a lot of African characters, black characters at that time. So they saw the opportunity for that. And I like the juxtaposition. And I think this is something that a lot of people attach to, is that as opposed to coming from a place of duress, coming from poverty or him being a slave, he was actually coming from royalty and being a king, and coming from a nation that had, the most advanced technology in the world. So I think all of those things mixed together and kind of turning that trope on its ear made him a really interesting character. And that was the start of people, kind of coming and paying attention to him.
What are his motivations? We know he's the king, and he's certainly motivated, but, protect his people, protect his homeland and things like that. But is there another key moment in the character's history, or another motivation that really drives that character forward, makes him the hero that he is today?
I think a lot of it is kind of how grounded he is. He, in this day and age that we live in, there's a lot of, celebrity celebration and interest. And T'Challa is someone who has all of the riches and all of the resources, but at the same time, he's not necessarily that person that's trying to run for the spotlight, run from the limelight. In a way, it's probably odd to say, but he's got a little bit of like a punk rock attitude towards it. It's like he's all about the business of it, but he doesn't necessarily want the glamour or, the glitz and whatnot. He kind of wants to just be a man. He's very much interested in the world, space, science, and his relationships. And, outside of me, we all have our interests, and all of us in some way, shape, or form have relationships. And I think the fact that he's more interested in those things than the other things makes him more accessible, makes him more relatable, because we don't all have access to unlimited resources and glitz and glam and space and all that, but we do all have access to relationships. So I think that is the main thing that binds him. And I think also his humility. He's just a good man, he loves his family. And, again, those are all things that, people like you and me and a lot of the people that read the comics and watch, can relate to.
So in that respect, would you say he's almost the antithesis or the yin to Tony Stark's yang? Yes, he's rich. Yes, he's powerful. Yes, he's very smart, but he's not searching out for the limelight. He isn't extremely cocksure and arrogant. He's more humble about his abilities and his mission, whereas Tony Stark is kind of the opposite. Is that, kind of how you take the character?
Yeah, absolutely. I can view that. And I think that was really good for the times that they spend together on the page, or even, on the silver screen, the limited amount of time that they got together there. That back and forth, the being the antithesis, it makes for really interesting tension, and then also really interesting relief, because though they may be the antithesis, in most cases we use that for villains when we read or when we write storytelling. In this particular case, they had a common thing, which was the greater good and protecting people. So it's nice that they had a common thread where they can come together, and we get the antithesis working together, and it makes for really interesting and entertaining storytelling.
There are a lot of really interesting characters there in the Black Panther mythology, and the one that I find the most interesting probably is Wakanda itself. It's not a real country, but it is in Africa. It has access to the greatest amount of resources in the world. It's completely self-sustained. It's kind of insular for the most part. Do you consider Wakanda a compelling character in its own right, or you just kind of consider it like a setting?
It's very much a character. I really appreciated not even so much Ta-Nehisi Coates, but what Brian Stelfreeze did for not the current run, but the run before that, the first Ta-Nehisi Coates run, where he really fleshed it out. Before, if you had read, some of the older stuff or even some of the Christopher Priest stuff or the Reggie Hudlin stuff, Wakanda was there. And I think I even remember an interview with Ta-Nehisi Coates talking about how so you had so much of Wakanda, you had to fill in the gaps with your own imagination, which at that time was probably perfect. But I think earlier on it was a setting, and it was a strong and a great idea of a setting, and then more recently it getting fleshed out and being more of a character really played a role. And oddly enough, I feel like I say oddly enough a lot, sorry, but I do honestly feel like it is odd that in the movie where we have the least amount of time to flesh things out, I think was the strongest characterization of Wakanda. But again, I give a lot of that credit to Brian Stelfreeze. I have one of his sketchbooks, and I got to meet him and talk to him a little bit. And he like, if you look at the sketchbook in particular, he really went a long way to give Wakanda itself a lot more of the front stage, if you will. And people, really took to it. It's pretty incredible what it's turned into.
I don't know that Black Panther's had like maybe the amount of classic runs, of course, not like Spider-Man or maybe some of the other, bigger name, A-level Marvel Comics characters, your X-Men, Wolverine, like I said, Spider-Man, some of that stuff. Who are some of the writers that have really encapsulated the essence of Black Panther and put the very best Black Panther stories on paper?
I kind of put them in two different categories. I would say some of the best Black Panther stories, and I know it's so easy to go to his run, but Christopher Priest. Christopher Priest took Black Panther and completely reimagined how Black Panther's story could be told in his run. It was very cinematic. It was very grounded, very rooted, but at the same time having some supernatural elements, with Mephisto being a part of the story that was very interesting. And I love the storytelling device of my goodness, I'm forgetting.
Were you talking about Ross?
Yes, yeah, Everett Ross. Everett Ross was the character that got introduced in Christopher Priest's run, where he was able to tell the story through that character's eyes, and it kind of represented us as being outsiders of Wakanda and just witnessing what it would be like to go, on an adventure or be with the Dora Milaje and T'Challa as he is working through, business outside of his country in New York. So I thought that was really incredible as far as like a story. And then as far as characterization, I really, controversial as he may be, and even controversial to myself, Ta-Nehisi Coates, I feel like did a really great job of capturing the person of T'Challa, his personality, dealing with the politics, not wanting to really be king, but being all about his family, about his stepmother Ramonda, Shuri, and all the rest of his country. And it was really interesting run up until about issue 15. Then things started to kind of fall off of the rails there. But I would say if you break it up into the characterization, Ta-Nehisi Coates' first run is really good. Check it out. And if you're looking just for like a crazy story and great storytelling, then Christopher Priest's run would be a great one for you to check, or anyone to check out.
We've mentioned the film a lot, and we are going to talk about that at the end. But one of the things that happened when the film really popped, I think Marvel Studios knew it was going to be big. I don't think they quite realized it was going to be $1 billion big or quite the worldwide sensation it was. But it almost felt like Black Panther got overexposed. All of a sudden, he's the head of the Avengers. He's got his own title. Then there's Black Panther and crew. There's Shuri. And I think there was another Black Panther title. So it felt like there was like 4 or 5 Black Panther titles all at one time. And as great as a character as he is, he's never been that A-list character that can really, carry multiple, series on his own. What do you think about them, like, maybe watering down or maybe overexposing the character to try and, cash in on that new notoriety, maybe not getting the best story quality out there?
I agree. At best, Black Panther was a C-list character really before the movies took off. It is very ironic that a character that doesn't want exposure from a royalty perspective as well as, a national perspective, a global perspective, has a hit movie and it ends up being overexposed. Yeah, we had the Black Panther run. We had Black Panther and the Crew came back, which got canceled because it wasn't good, and it had some stuff in there that I didn't like.
Comic book writer on that book. They just put one of like Coates' friends. It was strange.
Yeah, and he was writing it too, and I go on record to say I despise the comment about. I mean, I understand Harlem's being gentrified right now. I know people that are from there and that live there, but I despise the whole mayonnaise shop line that they put in there. That actually made me stop reading the comic because to me that was just overtly racist. But they did that. They had the Dora Milaje book with Roxane Gay, who had never written comic books before, and that one I think got canceled after the second or third issue as well. It just got overexposed. Like you said, there was another one with Aneka Okafor, I believe, who was someone who had just come in, and Ta-Nehisi, I guess, was giving him notes. But yeah, completely got overexposed. We had the Shuri book. We also had the Killmonger book. But by all accounts, that, with yourself included, that being one of your favorite books, that was, one of the better ones. Probably the second best book that came out of it besides the mainline Coates run. So yeah, got overexposed really quickly. But I think part of the reason for that not only was the effort from Marvel, but it's the social media age that we were living at that time. There were so many memes, so many GIFs, and so much fervor around the character that beyond what Marvel could ever do, because a lot of those books ended up not being successful, it was just social media and how it was being shared that I think ultimately ended up for it to be truly overexposed.
Yeah, it's too bad that they didn't find better creators. Hindsight's 2020. Brian Hill was the best creator that they found to put on one of those peripheral books, and go figure, it's a great book, and it's one of the best stories that came out at all of 2018, 2019. Now, we've kind of talked around it. We got to talk about the movie. I remember when the film came out, you saw all these GIFs and videos of people in theaters, standing Wakanda forever. It really touched a note. It galvanized communities around the character, around Wakanda, around just the story that Ryan Coogler and Chadwick Boseman and Angela Bassett and Forrest Whitaker, they got a A-list group of actors together for that superhero movie, and it just really seemed to hit a note that really connected with the people.
I literally physically took my body to go see the movie 20 times, and I bought 23 or 24 tickets because I had paid for my two daughters to come see me. I took my cousin once, and I also took my grandmother. So yeah, I paid for 24 tickets to go see that movie, and I didn't as excited as I.
In California, so it was.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So it was expensive. Yeah, it was expensive, and I wasn't going to all matinees either. But I think it. As excited as I was about the character getting a movie, I was really excited for. I didn't expect it to be as good as it was. I actually didn't love. I wasn't a big fan of Creed. I thought it was a good movie, but I honestly didn't understand why everybody loved it so much. I
love that movie. We'll talk about it another time.
Fruitvale Station was a really good first film for someone, and I live close to the Bay Area, so I was pretty close to that story that would happen. And I thought it was promising. Ryan Coogler actually went. I live in Sacramento. He actually went to Sacramento State. He was a wide receiver here. He was here on a football scholarship, and then he went down to USC. He's from Oakland, so there's a lot of ties to it. One of the musicians that got on the soundtrack is from Sacramento. So there were so many ties to the area that's close to me, but I didn't expect the film to be as quality as it was. The cast pulled it off. The story and the writing was intricate and everything. The costume detail was fantastic. There's some controversy around some of the CGI, of course, but I felt like minus that one scene at the end that people talk about and they fixed later, the rest of it was great. How they showed the power set, I feel like same thing. Claw, he was fantastic. Just everything about it was so good and entertaining. So I ended up going and seeing it that many times.
All right. So what do you think about Chadwick Boseman? Is he T'Challa?
He is T'Challa. I do feel like, you know, Michael B. Jordan did such a great job that he obviously stole the show in the movie. But Chadwick Boseman really did a good job of embodying it. And I'm not just thinking about that movie, but I'm also thinking about Civil War and how he even came in there. From Civil War, I felt like he was a really solid T'Challa. And then in the movie, I felt like he worked perfectly because the movie wasn't all just about T'Challa. Thankfully, they did a good job of making it enough about the effects of Wakanda being exposed to the world, family conflict from things that had happened long ago, and then, you know, catching up with people and, you know, paying for the sins of the father, so to speak. They did a good enough job of not making it just Black Panther centric, but really crafting an overall story to where I feel like he wasn't too much to where he was demanding all the time. He left enough air for all the other actors and actresses to be who they were while still being strong enough to be the central character.
Yeah, he plays stoic very well. Of course, he did the Jackie Robinson movie, I believe, and he handled that, you know, with great aplomb. Just a dynamite performance in that movie. But it really takes a good actor to have the presence to be next to Michael B. Jordan, who's really stealing the show with his very charismatic Killmonger character. But he's able to sit there with the stoicism and stand up to it, and still, you know, the other guy's having more fun. He's a more likable performance, even though he's the bad guy. But you know who the real star of the show is, and he never lost that, you know, in it. And it would have been very easy to lose that shine, you know, to Michael B. Jordan's performance or the performance for Shuri. As much as I don't really like the character, she certainly had some good lines, and she had a good presence, you know, on the screen. But she never outshined T'Challa because of the way Boseman handled the character, and I do think it was done very well. It's an interesting movie. It's not my favorite MCU movie, but it's definitely you know, it's in the upper third. It's nowhere near the middle of the bottom.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I have it as maybe my fourth or fifth favorite MCU movie. So it's up there for me as well. Absolutely.
Skip, I want to say thank you for joining me today. Talk a little bit about Black Panther and what makes him such a great character. Maybe some of the, you know, the better writers and people that really help flesh the character out. Is there something else you want to say about the Black Panther, the comic, or maybe Black Panther, the movie, or any of your thoughts on the character before we say goodbye?
Main thing I would say is, you know, really take a look at Brian Stelfreeze's art during the first Ta-Nehisi Coates run. It's beautiful. If you look at any of the older books, really minus Jack Kirby's stuff, Wakanda had never really looked like that before, and that's very obviously what they used in the film. So if you enjoyed the film and if you are looking for a book, like a comic that is closest connected to that, I would say check out the first Ta-Nehisi Coates run with Brian Stelfreeze. Outside of that, there's plenty of Black Panther stuff out there. There's an overabundance of it now. So you can always hit me up on Twitter, Skip and Tosh on Twitter. You can find me in the Discord as well if you're interested in any other Black Panther stuff. And I'm more so just looking forward to the future and the next big turn to make them interesting.
Thank you very much. And if you haven't read Killmonger yet from Brian Hill and Juan Ferreira, go read that. That is an absolutely amazing comic book. It's a wonderful supervillain origin story, and they knocked it out of the park. Thank you so much for joining me, Skip. Really appreciate it, buddy.
My pleasure.